Hello and welcome to The Real American. I'm Tracy Coyer, your host today, and we're joined by the esteemed Mr. Russell Prescott, candidate for United States Congress, and also a heck of a nice guy. So, Russell, welcome.
Yes.
It's good to see you again.
Great to see you too.
How are you?
I'm feeling good, working hard to be able to earn the vote of the people for the 1st Congressional District. Primary's coming up Tuesday the 10th of September.
Now, in the primary, how many candidates for your seat or
I
your
think there may be as
seat?
many as 7.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
So we've had debates for typically between 4 of us, and the other 3 are lesser known.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of people out there may not know who you are, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history here in New Hampshire?
Well, certainly. My mom and dad came from Quincy, Mass., moved up here. My dad started a business, and it's in Exeter, New Hampshire. I actually own it today. My brother and I worked at the company together, got transferred from the ownership of my father to him and I, and we worked side by side for over 30 years and grew it. It's a business where we manufacture water treatment equipment, and we wholesale water system equipment like well pumps. And then also we do engineering. So if someone has a problem, plumbers usually come to us as we sell wholesale, or a well driller or a water treatment professional, or a town, a municipality, and say, hey, I got a problem with my water. How do I deal with it? Myself, I'm a professional engineer, entrepreneur for 30 years, and then have designed multiple water systems. And a result of that, the business was able to grow with engineering, new ideas, patentable ideas. We have 7 patents.
Nice.
And we manufacture our patented products in Exeter. Now we have what was a 10-man shop. Now we have 50 employees. We have as many people on the road as we used to have. In total, we have 7 or 8 people on the road calling on different plumbers and well drillers and trying to sell our goods and showing them a good product at a good price.
Now,
a great service.
How wide is the service? I mean, do you cover all of the United States, just the Northeast?
Right now, we deliver practically 80 to 90% of all of our equipment in New England. So our areas would be that we would go up to northern Vermont every week. We would go to northern New Hampshire every week into Maine, even down to the border of New York.
Really?
And we do deliveries, yes.
Oh, that sounds pretty.
Rhode Island and the Cape, yeah.
So I'm sure your products are well known and quite good.
Well, certainly people do call me and say, hey, I have your product in my house. We call it the Bubble Up. It is a aeration system to remove radon from the water, so that it does not get into the shower and cause, the damages to radon in your lungs is the 2nd leading cause of lung cancer. Not a good thing to have.
As a realtor, I remember that.
Yes.
So you're no stranger to politics in general. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your political history?
Well, certainly. While we were building the business, I got to say that I've been married for 42 years, went to Exeter High School.
Congratulations.
And met my wife there. And we have 5 children. While we're raising 5 children, building a business, inventing, and having a very, very positive effect on the economy and increasing jobs in Exeter. I noticed that Maggie Hassan wanted to have an income tax.
Oh, yeah.
And so I ran against her. She was the majority leader, had passed an income tax on LLCs. And I ran a positive campaign on the issues. She was the architect of a $800 million deficit, and we won. And we won not just with Republican votes. You have to win with not with Democrat, but with independent votes and libertarian-leaning people. And young people need to see a positive message to be able to get that vote. And in having 5 children, all of them millennials, and having that understanding of the generations behind me, what they desire, they like a little bit of honesty, integrity. Just talk about the projects that you want to get accomplished, and work hard to get them accomplished. And so that resonated, and we won that seat in 2010, and we were faced with an $800 million deficit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I got into the Senate and served for 10 years. From there, I served 10 years, 6 years in the Senate. And then when Chris Sununu was going to become the governor, he said to me, he said, "Russ, people are talking about you when I'm talking about running for the governorship." And, I took that opportunity to run for the executive council, and I was able to fill the seat that Chris Sununu had vacated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. A lot of people like Chris. I personally have only met him once, and he seemed very nice, so I have nothing but good to say about him from what I know.
I have to piggyback on that.
Okay.
I have never, ever seen a more organized, articulate person. When I saw him in the first 4 years of his time as our governor,
Mm-hmm.
and how he was able to revamp and find the right people that we interviewed as the council, and we made sure that they were fully vetted, they were full of integrity, hardworking,
Mm-hmm.
intelligent, very qualified for the job that they were selected for. And it was very refreshing to be able to tell them, "Great job, great nominee, good job," and approve them. There was one or two I probably said no to.
I'm sure there were at least one or two. What do you see going on in Washington right now that, we know you were a candidate for change here in New Hampshire.
Yep.
When you ran. Now you're going to be a candidate for change in Washington. What do you think the most important things to start working on there would be?
Well, one of them is the economy. One of them is very similar to what we had to deal with when we came to the Senate with a $800 million deficit.
Mm-hmm.
It was 1% of our GDP, and we were able to balance that by cutting spending, right? And we were able to even cut taxes. We eliminated inheritance tax
Mm-hmm.
for New Hampshire, which brings a lot of growth here in
Yes.
New Hampshire over the last 10 years. We've made New Hampshire one of the safest states and one of the greatest places to live. I see the problem very similar in Washington, D.C. Right now we have a $1.5 trillion deficit, which is about 6% of the gross domestic product to
Mm-hmm.
GDP of America, believe it or not. And we were able to solve a 1% GDP problem in one term, 2 years, but immediately we took care of the problem. If we have that same fiscal responsible New Hampshire way of doing things in Washington, D.C., we would be able to fix our budget deficit in a short period of time.
Now, if you were to cut spending, and you'd be one of 435 people working on this, how are illegal immigrants going to get free cell phones if you cut the programs like that? I mean, that just doesn't seem
That would be
compassionate
one
at
of those
all.
things that we would have to discuss for sure. We have a problem
Oh, yeah.
in Joe Biden and Chris Pappas not ringing the alarm. When Joe Biden changed the rules, he just said, "We're not going to obey the law at the border." And that's what happened. We take an oath to the Constitution of the United States that says that the legislative branch makes the policies of our state and country, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And the legislative branch was full of Republicans and Democrats, whether it was a Democrat organization or what do they call it when you have the president is the president and the Democratic Party were in charge, or the Republican Party and the Republican president were in charge. That administration, those administrations, Republicans and Democrats, over centuries
Oh.
have debated this laws at the border, and an executive just said, "I'm not going to do my job
Right.
of executing the law." And so that is a direct violation of our Constitution. We have three separate branches
Yeah.
that can't override the other.
You're not supposed to be able to pick and choose which laws you enforce and which laws you don't. That's just not how the system is written.
That is correct.
But when they started with, well, we're a sanctuary city, now we're a sanctuary state, and we look back what's happened over the past, I'm going to go back 15, almost 16 years now, with the famous line from Nancy Pelosi, well, if you want, you have to pass the bill to find out what's in it.
Well, yeah.
pretty sure that's not how things were supposed to work. And then, you look into the Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, all the lies they told about it. And there were so many things in there that had no business being in a health care bill. But like anything else, they kind of stuff it in underneath the rug and just let it go. And that whole debacle on its face was inappropriate because that bill had to originate in the House. All taxes, and they did determine that the fee that they were charging if you didn't have it was a tax, and it should have been thrown out. We had weak politicians and that's back when it required 60 votes to pass something instead of slipping everything now through with 51 like they currently do with Harris as the Senate president. I don't know. It seems like it's almost time to get back to some sort of normalcy, and there should be consequences for the people who violated their oath of office.
And I think it's the ballot box coming up. Again, people want a positive message, and the positive message is that government does spend a lot of money, right? But we have to analyze what are our needs and what are our wants, and we have to separate the two. And therefore, that's the way that you balance a budget. You make sure that you take care of the needs, and it doesn't mean we're going to throw away all complete programs. We're going to look at the needs and the wants, do some alterations, find out where we do not have to do this as it's not a federal government responsibility, and simply, if we can, change the way that federal government works and says, all right, let's look at the 10th Amendment and say, all right, let's consider what the state's responsibilities are and not take responsibilities away from the states and give that back to the states, the power back to the people. And you talk about different programs where, how could that ever happen? It's the oversight, and it's very, very much more difficult in such a large government of bills and funding to have oversight, a great amount of oversight. But if we transfer that responsibility to the states, people are much more in charge, and more power to the people is what we need to do. And then we will balance our budget, and we will become a more secure country because of it.
I think something that escapes people right now, especially in the deeply divided climate that we have, is all Democrats aren't bad, all Republicans aren't all good. It's kind of a mesh in there. The difference is a Democrat will never go against the Democrat leadership. We have Republicans stand against Republican leadership on a semi-regular basis for what they consider to be the right thing. And I mean, we can look at a Mitt Romney or at the time, we're not even going to start using people's names, a little late for that. But to see that things could have been different had there been a little more unity within the party.
For the Republican
For
Party.
the Republicans. And the Democrats, they're just, okay, Nancy says vote for this, we're voting for this. Chuck says vote for this, we're going to vote for that.
And that was in the House. In the Senate, with Joe Manchin, it was quite a miracle on a couple of occasions that he stepped in and said this is where we should be going and not in that direction. I think that's a thing that you'd like to see from your House representative, and that's what we did not see. It would have been good if Chris Pappas had stood up and said, we just need to enforce our laws. The Border Patrol said, if we were just given the authority back again, if we were just given the funds to do it, we could reduce illegal immigration, what was it, by 70%? That's what they had said. And that still hasn't even happened yet. And it's unfathomable that Chris could not see through that and decide to be on which side of that in terms of history. The history is we have an open border.
Yeah, and it's not just the southern border. I mean, we have a problem at the northern border that everybody seems to ignore. Statistically, because of where it is, I mean, people are still crawling across from New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, definitely into Maine, and then all the way across. And nobody seems to even give that any interest whatsoever. You know, they say, well, you know, every state's a border state. Well, we actually are a
Yeah.
border state, and we are being invaded from the north, just as the country's being invaded from the south.
Right. And we have less personnel up there because federal funding was removed.
Mm-hmm.
When you remove the federal funding, it gives more opportunity for this to happen. And you're right, it is unbelievable over the last several years has been accomplished in 1 year in terms of how many illegals have been able to come over the border and then being allowed to stay in this country is quite exaggerated concern compared to 10 years worth of illegal entry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is more.
It's so funny because you look back and, you know, you heard Obama say, you know, we have to, you know, strengthen the border, and everybody said that, you know, we have to strengthen the border, but nobody does it. And then this guy walks in and says, oh yeah, this is all Trump's fault. Because how is it Trump's fault when the numbers were ungodly low when he was in? He was actually building a wall. On day one, you stop construction of a wall, and then you hear Kamala Harris. Well, this had nothing to do with me. You're the vice president of the United States. You were put in charge of the border and never went. And the one time you did go to Texas, you didn't even actually go to the border. You never spoke to any Border Patrol agents. You never spoke to any of the administration for the Border Patrol. It's all smoke and mirrors. That's all they do.
Well, we are in a position today practically as bad as we were 1 year ago. However, Chris Pappas comes here to New Hampshire during election time. He gets on the radio and says, we can't have all of these illegal aliens coming in over the border. And in contrast to that, all during the Biden administration, and even during the 2 years he was there, the 2 years at the end of Donald Trump's time in office, he voted with Nancy Pelosi and voted against further help at the border. And that, when you have a flip-flopper like that, it's a difficult thing to bring forward, bring light to that without being negative. It just has to be done. You have to understand what's been going on and shed light on that in a way where it's not a personal attack, it is the factual attack. The facts are brought out, and that's what we need to do for this race to be able to be a winnable seat and to be able to turn it from the Democrat Party in charge to a much more governing majority of Republicans in Washington, D.C. And I mean by a governing majority would be those that want to get there and want to work on the serious problems and not be ones that want to be, you know, the next millionaire or the next person on CNN. We need people that will go in there, roll up their sleeves, do their job. And there's three main things that really need to be done. It is the budget to stop inflation. If we can start balancing our budget, we'll stop the inflationary effect of borrowing money we don't have and creating it out of thin air. That creates the inflation. We can stop that. Of course, we can help people around the kitchen table with their heating bill. If we can lower the price of home heating fuel by $1, that's $1,000 a year for many homes.
And that would be the easiest thing to do because we're sitting on enough oil to power the world. We have the largest reserves in the world.
Correct.
But oh no, we're going to buy it from countries that don't like us. We're going to send them our money instead of keeping it in our economy.
And it's dirtier oil than ours being made and produced here. And the third is, of course, the border situation. And those are the things that when I became a senator, we concentrated on. Making sure our economy was strong, being pro-business, reducing taxes, limited spending, keeping the size of government in check so it doesn't become a burden to our everyday lives. And that's what we need in Washington, D.C. And I'm hoping that I can shed light that Chris Pappas has created these problems. He's the architect of the border problem, the border difficulties, the architect of a budget that is in deficit spending, and the architect of reducing all of our ability to have cleaner, cheaper oil here at home.
So let me see if I get this right. You won't be crossing the line to vote for Chris Pappas for Congress. Is that what I'm getting?
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't
Certainly.
missing something there. Oh, Lord. What else do you see that's going on? I mean, looking at the way the presidential leadership, or lack thereof, over the past 3.5 years has been shifting, and now the vice president is suddenly for a wall. She was for price controls a week and a half ago, and now she's against them. I mean, nothing that you can say is going to change what she is, and people are so blinded and just listening to everything. They listen to what they're being told. They don't look at the history. Now, you have a history to look back on, and you're a conservative. You've always stood that way. You hear Mr. Pappas say, and for lack of a better example, he's for border control, but his actions don't
match. It's rhetoric, correct.
The thing that's been lost is, we are a constitutional republic. We're a representative republic. We don't have a democracy where everything goes before a vote for every person. We elect representatives like yourself to vote for us. But it seems that nobody is listening to what the constituencies are saying. The representatives, once they get there, are just dogmatic in, I'm on this side, I'm on this side, everything you do is wrong, everything you do is wrong. Don't you think it's time that we get back to the point where the representative actually listens to his constituents and hears what they want and then votes that way, even though sometimes it may be across the party lines?
Well, certainly. When I was in the state Senate for those years between 2010 and 2016, I was very honored to become part of the leadership that I worked side by side with Jeb Bradley, who has endorsed my campaign, which I'm very honored by. We worked together, and every week we met with the other side and made sure that the following day, when we went to the Senate floor and had our floor fights, we knew what was going on, and we were very cordial to each other. It was never name calling. It was getting work done. And if we won, we won. If we lost, we lost. We went on to the next bill. And we didn't harbor, the point where all we would do is talk about the individual we didn't like. We never harbored that in the state Senate, and I think that is missing in Washington, D.C. I think it is something that you have to go along with, one nation under God. You say that quickly, right? Many people do it. It's the Pledge of Allegiance. And yet we forget the golden rule. Treat others the way you'd like to be treated.
Absolutely.
We can disagree. I disagree with what Chris Pappas has done, and he has been the architect of many of those problems we've been discussing. But in the end, we worked together on the Executive Council to move New Hampshire forward with Chris Sununu and making sure we did help with our opioid crisis at the time. Made sure those deaths from the criminal effects of what the drugs over the border cause. We worked very hard, and during the pandemic, those deaths came down.
Yes,
and
they did.
Now they're right back up again. And this is a difficulty with me being able to say that I worked with Chris Pappas to bring those down, and now when Chris Pappas goes to Washington, D.C., it has changed dramatically. And it is just what I need to do. I need to bring out the facts that we can do better, and we must do better. We must not have a person that just votes party line, ones that wants to accomplish great things for our state. And I say this with a lot of pride. My sixth great grandfather lived in Raymond, New Hampshire in 1775. General Stark had the saying, "Live free or die." Death is not the worst of evils. And my great-grandfather, he left Raymond, New Hampshire, and he went to the Battle of Bunker Hill, and he gave his life for this country. And I've had that knowledge my whole life and want to do the best that I can for my country and for my state. And that's why I ran for the Senate. That's why I ran for the Executive Council. That's why I'm running for the Congress seat, to serve my constituents And that was one thing I always did. I made sure that my cell phone was on the state website for those years, for those 10 years that I was elected and reelected. They always had my cell phone, 603-231-7822. I want everybody to know that constituent service is the most important part. If you can't be accessible, you're not a representative.
That's right.
And you need to be able to serve the people of New Hampshire with honesty and integrity. And I want to win with integrity. And that is treating others the way that you'd like to be treated. But I need to bring out the facts that Chris Pappas has let us down on a number of things, not all.
Well, unfortunately, we're quickly rolling out of time.
My pleasure to be here, I
So
tell
I
you
have
that.
a couple questions for you.
Sure thing.
Will you come back and see me after the primary?
I will try if it's appropriate.
All right. I'm going to hold you to that.
I would love to be able to come back as the nominee of the Republican Party. It is my endeavor for the next 7 days. What is it, 10, 13 days? I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's the 10th, so
Yeah, it's coming right up.
It's coming quickly. It's coming quickly, a week from Tuesday. Well, my friend, I look forward to seeing you again. I look forward to giving you any support that I can. And just to close out,
I would like to say to the people of Merrimack, you can go to Prescott for Congress and you can look at all of these things I've been speaking about today, and hope you find it appropriate. And my number again is 603-231-7822. I would love the honor of being your representative. Thank you. Have a great day.
all right, that's all the time we have. We'll see you next time, and
Thank you.
thank you very much for watching, and thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.